නිවසේ මෙවැනි මතු පිට රැඳෙන විස බීජ 99.9%ක්ම විනාශ කරන විම් ක්ලීනර්ස්.
Tonight, tall target. As 1 million more Sinopharm vaccines arrive, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa orders the vaccination of all over 30s in the Western Province by July's end. Gradual reopening. Education Minister plans to reopen schools with under 100 students after teacher vaccinations are completed. Proven allegations. The interim injunction against MTV is extended as the court concludes that George Stewart has a concrete case. Ready for business. The Kapuduwa interchange opened and the construction of the 4.9 billion rupee Maritime Facilitation Centre gets underway. All that and much more coming up on First at 9, this Friday the 2nd of July 2021.
Pocket ticket fit when a new Axe ticket perfume.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammike Kanayaka. Now, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa today instructed health officials to ensure that all over 30s in the Western Province are administered with a vaccine dose by the end of this month. The President's directive has been issued in order to achieve the target of vaccinating a higher percentage of people across the country before September in a systematic manner. Further, in a boost to the rollout, Sri Lanka received 1 million more doses of the Sinopharm vaccine today as part of a 2 million purchase order placed by the State Pharmaceuticals Corporation.
The government last month announced ambitious targets for the country's immunization drive. It intends to vaccinate all the people above the age of 30 at the end of September this year. A key component in achieving this is the vaccine availability. To that end, another batch of 1 million doses of the Sinopharm vaccine arrived in the island during the early hours of today. It is part of a 2 million dose purchase order placed by the State Pharmaceuticals Corporation. The island has received a total of 4.1 million doses of the China-manufactured jab, since the first consignment of 600,000 doses arrived in the country earlier in March this year. Health authorities have been able to administer at least one dose of the Sinopharm vaccine to over 1.9 million people so far. What's more, the Ministry of Health urged the general public to stay patient and follow suit when coming to receive the vaccine as the national immunization program is conducted island-wide. Meanwhile, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa instructed health officials to vaccinate all the people above the age of 30 in the Western Province before the 31st of July. The President's media division says that 60% of the people belonging to this age group in the Colombo district, 47% in the Gampar district and 34% in the Kalutar district are at least given one dose of a vaccine against COVID-19. The President emphasized the need to inoculate a higher percentage of people across the country before September in a systematic manner. The head of state also expressed confidence that Sri Lanka would soon receive the required amount of AstraZeneca vaccines for the administration of the second dose and instructed health officials to make arrangements to roll out the vaccine. Meanwhile, yesterday was another good day on the daily inoculation front, with a total of 169,957 vaccinations done. A total of 100,065 persons received the first dose of the Sinopharm jab, while 66,220 were administered with the second dose of the same vaccine. The second dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine, meanwhile, was given to 3,672 people yesterday. Since the detection of 5 COVID patients with the Delta variant on the 17th of last month from Dematagoda, concerns have been high. Since then, there have been several suspected Delta cases detected from Kotte and Kahatuduwa. But for now, there remain to be suspected Delta cases and nothing more.
So far, the situation is there were 5 confirmed cases and the number has not increased since yet. However, there are few other cases where a suspicion is there and are being monitored, where we are awaiting the final gene sequencing results, which is expected in near future. However, even with the suspicion, the relevant and appropriate preventive measures have been taken. Stringent quarantine and isolation has been imposed on these areas and the individuals and their household members. Further testing for gene sequencing of the initial contacts also has been completed. And when these results of gene sequencing are available, we will be informing you in due course.
In the meantime, the strike launched by several nurses' trade unions continues for a second day today. The Public Service United Nurses Union, the Government Nursing Officers Association and the All Ceylon Nurses Association have opted to take trade union action amid the pandemic over several demands. They demand that promotions be given every 5 years, a shift-based work schedule similar to that of government institutions, and solutions to the issues they face in battling the pandemic be looked into. Hospitals island-wide were crippled by the move today as well, with the exception of hospitals and treatment centres dedicated for COVID treatment, Women and Children's Hospitals and the Apeksha Hospital in Maharagama. Given the timing of the strike, the Ministry of Health urges them to reconsider and resolve their issues via talks, without jeopardizing the progress made in curbing the virus spread.
Health Ministry always respect their right to take the trade union actions and to protect their rights and privileges. However, I would like to urge all the members of the health profession as well as health workers who are working in the control activities related to COVID-19 as well as other health related activities to be restrained and then resolve your issues by discussion and by consensus, so that the minimal inconvenience will be caused to the public, and we should not leave any room for this common enemy to spread and create problems to the entire health system, as well as to reduce the level of protection that is faced by the general public.
Meanwhile, yesterday 1,883 fresh COVID-19 cases were confirmed across the country. The Western Province topped the list of cases with 809. Among the 3 districts of the province, the majority of cases were reported from the Gampar district with 342. Meanwhile, 68 imported cases were also confirmed across treatment centres yesterday. As for today, 1,102 fresh cases have been confirmed in the island so far, placing the number of active cases in Sri Lanka at 29,413. As for recoveries, there were 1,701 today, taking the overall tally to 229,541.
අද සේවසකට වැඩි ජනතා විශ්වාසය නව සංයෝගයක රයිනෝ රෝෆිං සහ සීලිං ෂීට්.
The police have nabbed more buses that attempted to breach inter-provincial travel restrictions today. Now, 3 luxury buses plying from Colombo to Batticaloa were intercepted, and all 49 passengers were put through rapid antigen tests, of which 3 tested positive. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Education is mulling the reopening of schools with less than 100 students this month. However, only after all teaching staff are vaccinated.
The Ministry of Education is considering the reopening of schools with less than 100 students within the month, provided that the teachers are immunized.
නමයෙන් 100කට අඩුවෙන් ඉන්න පාසල් අපේ රටේ තිබෙනවා 2962ක්. මේ පාසල් ප්‍රථම පියවරක් හැටියට විවෘත කිරීම සඳහා මේ මාසයේ ජූලි මාසය තුල ඒ පියවර ගැනීමට අධ්‍යාපන අමාත්‍යාංශය උත්සාහ දරනවා. හැබැයි එසේ කිරීම සඳහා අත්‍යවශ්‍ය දෙයක් තමයි ගුරුවරුන්ට එන්නත් ලබා දීම. අපේ රටේ සිටිනවා ගුරුවරුන් 2,42,000ක්. ඊයේ අතගරු ජනාතුමා අනුමත කළා ගුරුවරුන්ට එන සතියේම මේ එන්නත් ලබා දෙන්නයි කියලා.
In the meantime, the inter-provincial travel restrictions are still applicable and will remain effective until the 5th of this month. Though this fact has been very clearly communicated to the people, some risk their own health and others by disregarding it. Police today intercepted 3 luxury buses plying from Colombo to Batticaloa in violation of inter-provincial travel restrictions. 49 persons in total, including the drivers and conductors, had been in the buses when they came under police scrutiny. Subsequently, the police apprehended the drivers and conductors of the buses in question. When rapid antigen tests were conducted on all 49 persons, 3 had returned positive results, following which measures were taken to admit the infected persons to hospital. The rest were quarantined. Meanwhile, the Department for Registration of Persons will resume public services on Monday, but it will be done on a prior appointment basis. Members of the public who have already submitted applications and intend to obtain national identity cards are urged to reserve a date. In the meantime, the Wedding Planners Association voiced their grievances today, saying that all persons linked to the sector are facing hardships owing to the restrictions put in place to curb the spread of COVID-19. The wedding industry suppliers collective too harbour similar grievances, saying that around 400,000 persons are directly and indirectly affected by the ban on gatherings. Issuing a plea to the government, they request the ban on weddings be lifted with an agreeable crowd capacity permitted, as they are willing to adhere to any manner of guideline imposed by the government. In the meantime, following risk assessments, 5 Grama Niladhari divisions across 4 districts were isolated with effect from 6 am today. What's more, several localities in the districts of Gampaha and Matale were brought out of isolation as well. For further details, log on to www.AdaDerana.lk.
Big 3.
Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa today declared open the Kapudua interchange of the Southern Expressway. He also vested the pedestrian underpass in front of the Peradeniya Teaching Hospital with the public constructed to ease the traffic congestion. The Premier also marked the commencement of construction work of the new 4.9 billion rupees 17-storey maritime facilitation centre at the Colombo port.
The construction work of the Maritime Facilitation Centre at the Colombo port, undertaken by the China State Construction Engineering Corporation Limited, commenced today under the patronage of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. The 4.9 billion rupee project comes to life under President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's vision for the country's development, vistas of prosperity and splendour. Adhering with safety guidelines, the Premier unveiled the commemorative plaque digitally from the temple trees, marking the commencement of the construction work. The project is set to be completed in 2023. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa also vested the subway located in front of the Peradeniya Teaching Hospital with the public today, which was constructed at a cost of 127 million rupees by the Hunan Construction Engineering Group in China. This pedestrian underpass was completed within a span of 12 months to serve as a solution for the heavy traffic congestion near the Peradeniya Teaching Hospital. Later, the Kapudua interchange of the Southern Expressway was also digitally declared open by the Prime Minister today from the temple trees. Undertaken by the China National Aero Technology International Engineering Corporation, the interchange is constructed at a cost of 455 million rupees. The occasion was also attended by several ministers and parliamentarians.
සමහර ආනා මේ වෙලාවේ මේ කොරෝනා වසංගතයේ අවස්ථාවේ මේ මාර්ග ඛණ්ඩද මේවා අදන්නේ කියන එක. ණය ආධාර ගිවිසුම් ගත වුණාම නියමිත කාලෙට මේවා අපි ඉටු නොකළොත් අපි වැඩිපුර මිනිසුන්ගේ සල්ලි රටේ ජනතාවගේ සල්ලි මේ සඳහා අපි ගෙවන්න සිද්ධ වෙනවා.
මේ මාර්ග ලක්ෂයේ වැඩපිළිවෙල ආරම්භ කළා. අදටත් ඒ අඛණ්ඩව ක්‍රියාත්මකයි. අපි මේ සංවර්ධන වැඩ කරනකොට විරුද්ධ පක්ෂය අතම් මුදවිය ඒවා විවේචනය කරනවා. සමහරු කියනවා කොවිඩ් ඉවර වෙනකම් ඉන්නලු වැඩ පටන් ගන්න. පාරවල් හදන එපාලු. මෙහෙම කියන ඒවා අවංකව කරන යෝජනාද නැද්ද කියන මේ රටේ බුද්ධිමත් ජනතාව ඔබ හොඳින් දන්නවා. කොවිඩ් නිසා හැමදේම නෑ බෑ කියලා නතර කළා නම් අද ජනතාවට ඊට වඩා දුෂ්කරතා මතුවෙන විදිය ඔබ දන්නවා. අපි මේ ජනතාව රැක බලා ගන්නවා. ඒ සඳහා අවශ්‍ය ශක්තිය ඔබෙනුත් අපිට අවශ්‍යයි. වසංගතයෙන් ආරක්ෂා වෙන ගමන් ඔබේ ශක්තිය රට වෙනුවෙන් නොපිරිහෙලා ලබා දෙන ලෙස අපි ඔබෙන් ඉල්ලනවා. අපිට එකතු වුණොත් කරන්න බැරි දෙයක් නෑ.
We will see you shortly. Bear with us.
ගෙදරකට තේ හදනවා කියන්නේ වෙනම වැඩක්. මැලිබන් තේ ගෙදර පදමට තේ.
Welcome back. This is First at 9. Now, Chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission, President's Counsel Viraj Dayaratna has positive comments about the new Securities and Exchange Commission Act, which was gazetted on Monday. Speaking to Indiya Riyamuatta on our current affairs program at Hyde Park on AdaDerana 24, Dayaratna said that the new bill clears all existing ambiguities whilst empowering the regulator to take necessary action over any market offences.
The Securities and Exchange Commission bill, a draft was cleared by the Cabinet. What changes are we looking at?
We are at the very latter stages of enactment of this new piece of legislation, and we have been talking about this for years. After being gazetted, you have to wait for a period of 2 weeks to see if there are any challenges to the bill, and thereafter it can be introduced in Parliament. We see that the government is very keen to have this legislation enacted, so we are very confident that it will happen very soon. It will strengthen the regulatory regime. There will be a lot of changes that will be brought in. From a regulatory perspective, the offences, people talk a lot about market offences. As to what conduct constitutes an offence, we have two principal offences, market manipulation and insider dealing. So as to what would constitute insider dealing, all the ingredients, the conduct, as to who can commit this offence, all of that has been very clearly spelled out. There are certain ambiguities as at now, but with the introduction of the new law, those ambiguities have been taken away. Again, with regard to market manipulation, who can commit market manipulation, how will that be committed, all of those. It's a very thin line between what is permitted and what is prohibited, particularly if you take market manipulation. It's not very clear cut, but with the new law, that has been cleared. It will be easier for the regulator, and the punishment that can be imposed has been enhanced. Now the major market offences will be tried in the High Court. Presently it's the Magistrates Court. So the courts have more power with regard to the punishments that can be imposed. Then another feature is now if there is any act that is against the provisions of the Act, it is a criminal offence. And what the Commission can do is to take that person to court. But with the new law, there is provision for administrative sanctions. So depending on the misconduct, you can impose a punishment that is commensurate with the wrongdoing. It can either be a penalty, it can be restitution, and there is also another important change that has been brought about with the new law. Depending on the circumstances, the SEC can institute proceedings in the civil court, in the commercial high court against a person, to recover damages as well as impose a civil penalty, and the damages recovered can be given to the person who has suffered loss. So that's a significant change.
Now, the government has given a comprehensive response to the European Union on the list of follow-up questions on the current GSP Plus monitoring cycle in adherence to the agreed timeline. A communiqué released by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs says that the government brought the EU up to date on the progress made in the reconciliation front, including the measures taken to revise the provisions of the Prevention of Terrorism Act.
The government has appraised the European Union of progress in specific areas of reconciliation, including the action underway to revisit provisions of the Prevention of Terrorism Act with the study of existing legislation, past practice and international best practices. The Foreign Ministry says that the EU was further informed of the granting of pardon by the President, exercising his powers in terms of Article 34 of the Constitution to 16 former LTT cadres convicted and serving sentence under the PTA. The organisation has also been appraised of the process that has been set in motion to release detainees who have been in judicial custody for a prolonged period under the PTA. With reference to progress on ongoing reconciliation mechanisms, the government has informed the EU of the release of 79 million rupees to the Office of Reparations in June to settle 1,230 process claims for reparation. An additional 80 million rupees was released on the 29th of June to settle a further 1,451 process claims out of a total of 3,389 processed claims. The Foreign Ministry stated that the government maintains a regular, cordial and multifaceted dialogue with the EU, which includes constructive cooperation existing between Sri Lanka and the European Commission on the review of the country's EU GSP Plus compliance with the 72 core international conventions. In this regard, it said the third cycle of review of Sri Lanka in the GSP Plus monitoring process for 2020-2021 is ongoing, and European Commission is provided via diplomatic channels the comprehensive response of the government to the list of follow-up questions on the current GSP Plus monitoring cycle in adherence to the agreed timeline. The government of Sri Lanka will continue its close and cordial dialogue with the EU with regard to commitments while demonstrating the country's substantial progress in areas of reconciliation and development.
Now, the defamation case filed against MTV Channel Private Limited by George Stewart Health was taken up in the Colombo District Court today. During the proceedings, the previous enjoining order that was extended on 9 previous occasions was extended until the conclusion of the case. In addition, in what could be termed as a sign of things to come, the court also concluded that George Stewart had proven its defamation allegations against MTV.
George Stewart Health filed defamation action against MTV Channel Private Limited in the latter part of last year in response to defamatory news reports targeting the company and its chairman Dilip Chavira that were broadcast on its news outlet Citizen News First. In its plaint, George Stewart Health listed out repeated instances of what it termed mischievously fabricated and factually incorrect news designed with malice carried on Citizen News First pertaining to the importation of COVID-19 rapid antigen test kits, which it says was aired with the aim of misleading the public and defaming both the company as well as its chairman Dilip Chavira. Subsequently, an enjoining order was first issued on the 23rd of November 2020, preventing MTV news outlet, its agents and employees from airing such news reports, and was extended further on 9 separate occasions since then. When the case was taken up in the District Court of Colombo today, the enjoining order was extended for the 10th time, however this time for the entire duration of the case. George Stewart Health seeks 2 billion rupees in damages from MTV Channel Private Limited. Meanwhile, during today's hearing, the judge informed court that there are reasonable grounds for confidence in the facts stated in the affidavit and that its provisions can be accepted under Section 181 of the Code of Civil Procedure, and concluded that the argument presented by the accused was baseless. Further, the court was told that the documents showed that a business rivalry existed between the owners of the two companies and that the relevant documents proved that the accused had in fact acted with malicious intent and could hence be considered as evidence. While issuing the interim injunction today, the court also concluded that the plaintiff did have sufficient grounds for the filing of a defamation case, which for all intents and purposes was winnable. The case is due to be taken up next on the 1st of October.
We will see you once more after this break. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is First at 9. Now, the Colombo Stock Exchange and the CHEC Port City Colombo have signed a memorandum of understanding to enhance the capital markets in Sri Lanka. The CSE said that the MOU was signed with the objective of working on a collective mission to establish an international multi-currency exchange within the Port City Colombo. The exchange will serve as a gateway for both regional and global investors, whilst also providing an ideal platform for Sri Lanka and overseas corporates to issue foreign currency bonds and equities, as well as develop other financing and risk management instruments across asset classes. The CSE says that it, together with the CHEC Port City, will actively collaborate to identify and attract a global stock exchange to partner the Colombo Stock Exchange in establishing a modern world-class trading exchange which will position Sri Lanka as a hub for capital raising in the South Asian and the ASEAN region. Now, the Sri Lankan shares ended higher today, helped by gains in consumer staple and industrial stocks, but the main index logged its first weekly loss in 6. The CSE All-Share Price Index ended up 0.23% at 7,746.56, but fell 0.8% for the week, while the S&P SL20 Index of more liquid stocks rose by 15 points to close at 2,970.75. With that, here's Dimantha Mathi with today's market report.
Turned green, reversing the 3-day decline in the market. So overall, we saw the market increasing by around 18 points to close at 7,746 points, while the S&P SL20 index rose about 15 points. So looking at the outlook during the day, at the start of the day itself, we saw the index significantly declining and then staying there for about 1 hour. And afterwards, we saw the market gaining momentum with buying interest coming back into the market, moving into positive territory and then moving beyond that as well. So after that, what we are seeing is that the loss of confidence in the last 3 days seems to be reversing, but the illiquid counters that were declining continue to be on the declining trend. However, today what we are seeing is that there is a lot of interest in the banking and finance sector counters, a number of crossings taking place which help to boost the overall turnover.
And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.